just to remind folks who might be watching, we're talking to Jules Pegram. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Pegram.
Pegram, about his piece, L.A.tudes. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
You can see the title behind us. They're a good little placement.
Oh, yeah.
That the Illinois Wind Symphony will be playing on May 3rd. Now, have you had the premiere of this work? I understand it was at Arkansas. Where is it that you're?
Yeah, so the world premiere was at the University of Central Arkansas, and my old buddy Michael Hancock, who's director of bands there, and I have been in talks for a long time about doing this project, and it's been this kind of big dream thing to have a piece that was commissioned by a consortium of groups, and they were the first group to do it, and now it's going on to the 17 other ensembles that make up the 18-member consortium. So Illinois is only the second group to do it.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, we've had several works like that. Yeah, it's a neat system for, especially doing band symphony, wind stuff.
Right. Sad to say, it's almost unique to the band world that every once in a while you get consortia with the orchestral world, but typically if it is done, it's maybe 2 or 3 orchestras tops. I think because they're just more municipal, a city's civic orchestra is kind of connected with that one special premiere, whereas band is much more of a collegial kind of world. I think it's one of the beautiful things about it. And it's academic largely, connected with the university systems, and it's a little bit more like there's a network that of collective enthusiasm behind a premiere.
Yeah. So your piece is a lot about Los Angeles things. Are you a native Angelite?
I guess I'm one of those people who wishes they were. I'm actually not from here originally, but I moved here, and I swear when I first got on the tarmac, I went to USC out here for my undergrad, and I swear when I first, for orientation, like landing at the LAX tarmac, I just kind of knew, yeah, I'm probably going to be here for a while. And I got really bitten by the LA bug pretty immediately. And so I did go to USC for 4 years and started getting to know LA, but then going to Michigan for grad school for the next 5 years was sort of a departure for a bit, but I knew this, again, kind of a magnetic pull that was going to bring me back, and that's exactly what happened.
Nice, yeah. Yes, I saw that you did your master's and DMA at U of M. Nice.
Yes.
I'm from Michigan myself, so.
Oh, cool. What part?
Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo, okay.
About
Western.
an hour and a half from Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
so,
very nice.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Illinois is too, but yeah, great school of music.
Yeah.
All right,
definitely.
Well, I have a few questions to ask you about the piece, which is really quite interesting in its relation to Los Angeles. I really like the title, L.A.tudes.
Thank you.
Very, it's very clever. So tell us a little bit about how, in terms of, I guess we'll start with musical things that you try to evoke the spirit of the city.
Well, first, the title, L.A.tudes, it's obviously play on the word etude, which musicians will certainly know as a study of a certain technique, or even they can be used in sort of flashy showcase kind of ways where a performer might demonstrate one specific ability or technique on their instrument. And so I don't know, when I was thinking about that word, or a way to group these movements that I knew would be about LA, that very quickly became the title, because they are sort of studies, but instead of a technique on an instrument, they're studies of a place and specific aspects of a place. Originally, the idea was actually to do 5 or 6 different neighborhoods. And eventually that got to be very few reasons I decided not to do strictly neighborhoods, but it sort of morphed into like aspects of Los Angeles, or how can I make the piece sound like LA feels when you're here. And that's kind of what I was going after in terms of the overall structure.
Yeah. So then, let's see, just walk us through. So there's 5 movements. First is Figueroa Corridor.
Yeah, so Figueroa is one of those names that any Angelino would certainly know. It's one of the main thoroughfares in all of LA. This is very long. A lot of the streets here are super long, kind of spines of the whole city, and Figueroa is one of the main ones. But the Figueroa Corridor is a specific place, and it's where USC is. So it's sort of the first neighborhood I did get to know out here. But it's also the site where the LA Memorial Coliseum is, where the Olympics are about to be held in 2028 and were held back in the mid-'80s. The Shrine Auditorium is also there, where the Oscars telecast was held 10 times. It's now, of course, the Dolby Theater in Hollywood, but it used to be right in the Figueroa Corridor. There's another beautiful college there, Mount St. Mary's College, Women's College. And there's all this beautiful architecture around all these civic buildings and, again, academic kind of buildings. And there's also 2 of the most ornate cathedrals in all of LA are at Adams and Figueroa, right in the middle of this corridor. So this is music of cathedrals, of gladiators, and of, you know, coliseums, that sort of thing.
So I hear a little bit of the perhaps maybe allusion to the trumpet fanfare from the Olympics, maybe.
There's a little bit of that, you know. There's a little bit of that color for sure. Imagining heraldic trumpets, a la John Williams, you know, who of course were that great fanfare for the 1984 Olympics.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of a tip of the hat to that in a loose way.
No, yeah, it's different, yet reminiscent. Yeah.
Yeah, very intentional, and there's even a section in that that's, again, not an exact quote of anything specifically, but it's sort of a tip of the hat to hymn-like material. There's a spot where it sort of sounds very briefly almost like it could be part of a hymn or a chorale that you'll hear, and that's maybe again sort of evoking those cathedrals, perhaps.
And then next one, I love the title, WeHo Tableau.
Yes, that was originally called WeHo Divertimento because I knew it was going to be a light little episode in WeHo, but I came up with the word tableau because I really wanted to sort of depict a scene, which is what tableau translates as. And it's also a word that was beloved by Stravinsky. And Stravinsky lived right on the edge of West Hollywood for like 30 or 40 years, and right on Doheny Drive, off Doheny Drive. And so as I was writing this, I thought it'd be kind of cool if it could feel, again, contemporary and of today, but maybe also a tip of the hat to Stravinsky. So there's mixed meter all throughout this movement. The time signatures are constantly shifting. The rhythms are really kind of wacky and zany. WeHo's West Hollywood is also the, I believe I'm correct in saying this, the one, and well, certainly one of the only, I can't think of another LGBT enclaves in the United States is actually an incorporated city. So most places like the Castro District in San Francisco or Hell's Kitchen, New York, they're part of a city, but West Hollywood is actually its own separate municipality, and it was founded in the mid-'80s by local activists trying to create a safe space, safe haven for the gay population of LA at the time, and it still is very much that. So you know, I'm a proud resident of WeHo. I love it here. It's my home neighborhood.
And toward the latter half of that movement, you have a very interesting, if I were, well, I don't want to guess, but it sounds like we're sort of seeing a kind of Charles Ives-esque coming together of different sounds. Is that like as you were driving by, or?
I love that. Yeah. I guess instead of standing on a Connecticut field hearing marching bands surrounding you, like Ives, you're standing on the middle of Santa Monica Boulevard with nightclubs surrounding you and really loud cars. I live right on Fairfax, which is again one of these huge spinal kind of streets in LA, and I love it here. I wouldn't trade it for anywhere, but it is definitely, the noise is up from the traffic is definitely intense sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that hubbub at the end of the movement, certainly, where you hear cacophony of city life. But then it's also one of the most pedestrian friendly neighborhoods in all of town. So it has moments of calm and respite and just kind of, something relaxed as well.
Right then, to get a break from the urban sort of atmosphere, the next movement, Mulholland Nights, and
Yes.
so I like how you, when I think of Los Angeles, I often think of, as you said, about like long streets, very urban.
Right.
So how do you take us there and remind me, the photo you have taken for that on your website is sort of the famous like overlook, high down into Los
Yeah.
Angeles.
And I'm happy to say it's not even one of these kind of exclusive streets that's hard to get to. It's a pretty easily accessible thoroughfare in town, and it's something anyone visiting LA should make an effort to go see, because it's really, I think it's the most stunning street we have here. Probably one of the most famous roads in America too, Mulholland Drive. There's of course the David Lynch film from 2001. That's honestly maybe my very favorite film, one of my very favorites. So that film is of course a surreal take on Mulholland Drive, and I was going for a similar thing in this particular movement. Again, it's not a neighborhood exactly now, so then now we're starting to shift down to that original idea I had of maybe just 5 neighborhoods. I wanted definitely one homage to this street. So it's a very treacherous, for all the beauty and all the fantastic views of the cityscape you have. It's also a very treacherous drive at night, especially with winding turns and it's sort of shadowed and veiled, very few lights up there. So it's a really, kind of magical, but also a little bit dangerous. And there's a little bit of that, a lot of that, I hope, in the music. One final thing I'll say about it is it's one of those roads where you drive and you have a sense of dreams and of all the folks who've moved down here with those dreams and ambitions. And sometimes those dreams end well, sometimes they don't end well, but it is as close to a universal shared experience, maybe, as we have out here for so many of the folks that move out to Los Angeles. And that road evokes that to me.
Very cool. Yeah, it's just a good exploration of place, which is harder than we think sometimes to create musically.
Colin, it's interesting because when I was talking with Michael Hancock, who originally commissioned the work, my first instinct was, if I do a piece about LA, I want it to be lived in. I want to have been to these places. I want to have driven through them and spent time in them and hung out, and see if I can let those areas speak to me and inform what the music is. So I can't tell you how many times I drove Mulholland Drive, sort of imagining what it could be and what those sounds were. And actually, when I first started writing it, I have a lot of different tools. I work on my piano here. I write at first by hand. Sometimes I use my iPad and write on that. And then very often I'll write straight into my software as well. It's kind of a lot of different tools to get to the finished product. But certainly once it goes in the computer, I can very quickly have a nice mock-up of how it sounds. And so I exported the MIDI little MP3 of that movement, I remember, several times, and played it in my car as I was driving to see if it felt right. I did that with a lot of the piece, actually.
That's a really good way, interesting use of new technology, but still
right,
pretty organic writing process.
Yeah. That I'm so glad you said that, organic. That's so important to me. Yeah. That it feels not forced, that it feels like it flows naturally and fits. Yeah.
It's really all right. So on to Nuestro Pueblo, which is another name for the Watts Towers,
Yes.
developed by Simone Rodia.
Yes.
So, and tell us a little bit about that for those who might not be familiar with.
This is definitely, I would say, well, it was actually one of the last sections of the piece I wrote or finished, but I quickly realized it was the most important movement of the whole piece, I think, in a lot of ways, because it, in trying to make this piece universal, I wanted to find a story or two that would hopefully be kind of a shared universal feeling or experience. And I've sort of found that with this landmark called the Watts Towers, and I've known about them for years, but had never been there. Like way too many Angelenos, actually. It's something a lot of folks maybe have heard about, but haven't spent time at. So last summer, I went down there for the day and just instantly thought, I have to write a section of this piece about this structure. And I went on this whole deep research about it. Simone Rodia was an Italian immigrant who moved to the United States and ended up settling in Los Angeles. And for 33 years, he built these towers in his backyard in Watts, which is a neighborhood in South Central LA. And he kind of did it for no fame or notoriety or anything beyond just like the local community. I don't know. He was very private about it, and sort of just built them again with this obsessive quality. He did it every day of the week, Sundays, Christmas, everything. And for 33 years. And then when they were done, he like sort of mysteriously left LA, abandoned them, and never looked at them again in person. Kind of interesting character. He called it Nuestro Pueblo, though, as an ode to his Mexican-American neighbors. And Nuestro Pueblo translates to in Spanish as our town, our village, our community. And that seemed to be they're more commonly known as the Watts Towers, but that message of Nuestro Pueblo, I thought was the perfect movement title for this too, because that's in a small way out what I'm trying to do with this piece, is to showcase an entire city as much as you can. Anyway, one last thing I'll say about that section that you'll hear in the work is the opening opens with what are called found objects, and that's something percussionists will certainly know. It's whenever percussion plays kind of a non-traditional instrument like a snare drum or cymbals or xylophone, but instead plays a found object. And it turns out Rodia actually, as an ornament to his structure, affixed seashells, broken mugs, clay tiles, flower pots, all kinds of scraps, really. And then, but just decorated his entire structure with this. So if you can see a picture of these, they're really something. But I wanted to start the movement with those sorts of sounds. So we hear, the very first sound we hear is seashells via seashell wind chimes. He actually put over 10,000 seashells on these structures. You'll hear broken flower pots or clay flower pots evoked. You'll hear glass bottles and even some ceramic tiles, all kind of this cacophony of found objects that open the work. And then from that, you'll hear a clarinet solo that I sort of imagine is Simone himself, a soliloquy maybe. And not to give it all away, but just something to listen to as you're experiencing the piece. You'll definitely hear, I hope pretty obviously, a big climactic moment of the piece where I'm imagining him ascending his towers and looking out over the whole cityscape and then gradually descending back down to ground level.
Yeah, and as a percussionist, I can say we always appreciate having more parts.
Yes, exactly. That's not just for snare drum or xylophone or something.
Yeah, there can be a lot of counting.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. All right. Off ramp, which I think is a great kind of way to getting back to this, infrastructural sort of nature, oppressiveness that is Los Angeles, right?
Right. And there's the title of that seemed right because, well, we can't have LA without some driving, right? You've got to have some sort of freeway music. And I really went back and forth on that title a lot, but I thought off ramp seemed right because, of course, it's the last movement. It's how we get out of the piece. But off ramps are also sort of how your LA journey kind of begins in a way. We get off these incredible structures, our freeways, and then into the city, and that's how you sort of how the journey begins. So it's this ending / beginning. It seemed like the right title, and this is just an homage to all the freeways out here, from the 10 and the 110 to the 405, which I think is the most trafficked single freeway in all of, I think, the world. Actually, it's we love and hate our freeways out here. It's a love-hate relationship, but again, going back to that idea of a universal, if there is one universal here, it would certainly be everyone's relationship with the freeways.
Well, cool. Let's see, is there any other thing you'd like to leave us with? A little.
Yeah, you know, I hope that as specific as this is about Los Angeles, I hope that this will also evoke feelings of urban life for all of us and all of our connections to cities. I mean, it's really a celebration of the American city. And I also sort of hope it serves as maybe a travelogue or something that invites folks to come visit LA. LA is a very complicated place, complicated history, and Angelinos are used to having our city explained to us. That's what Jonathan Gold, the great food writer, used to say about LA. And there's a lot of truth to that. Everyone has an opinion of LA, and a lot of it is negative too. And I have to say, this was an effort to share something positive about this place that warts and all, I think is just about the best city one can ask to live in.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. Yeah, it's
Colin, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, so we'll here, I'm just gonna stop the recording for
and I want to thank Kevin Giraldi too.
in there. Hold on.
Yeah, I'd love to thank Kevin Giraldi and the Illinois Wind Ensemble for this upcoming concert. The band's going to do, I know, a fantastic realization of this piece, and I've already heard a little bit of the rehearsal, and it sounds just fantastic. So I can't wait for the performance on May 3rd.